Hajimeru Isekai Seikatsu, Chapter 3 First Encounter with Magic. Time itself stopped, a phrase reserved for moments like this. At the entrance of the alley stood a single girl. She was a beautiful girl. She had tied up her long silver hair, which reached until her hips. Her piercing gaze was brimming with intelligence. Her soft features were both seductive and youthful, and she exuded an air of nobility that was dangerously charming. She stood about 160 centimeters tall. Her royal blue-toned garments were particularly flashy, and yet their simplicity emphasized her presence even further. The one conspicuous figure was the emblem on her coat, a bird resembling a hawk, and even its magnificence was nothing more than a supplement to her sublime beauty. "I won't let you run amok like that. Stop at once," she spoke again, her voice so exciting it could send tremors through one's body. Her voice was like a silver bell. It was pleasant to the ears, and her speech held such powers that it could shake one's heart. Subaru was overwhelmed, to the extent that he had completely forgotten his predicament. He could only think of her. The bandits were no different. Faced with her animosity at their earlier vigor vanished. Even the man holding the knife turned pale as they retreated into the alley. Wait, please wait. We don't really get it, but we will let him go, so please forgive us. It's good to see you are so gracious. It's not too late, so return what you stole. Was our bad what we stole? Please, it's really important. I'd let go of anything else, but not that. If you return it now, I'll spare your lives. Though her words were that of an entreaty, the last few lines were clearly filled with anger. Her gaze was sharp, and her hand she had extended felt as though she could reaching out was empty. However, there was something hard to put into words gathering in her palm, something everyone there could feel. Wait, perhaps there has been some kind of mistake. What? They pointed to Subaru, still under the breeze. You're not here to save this guy, right? What strange clothes is he wearing? Perhaps there's been some internal strife among you. I can't say I approve of you ganging up on him like that, but if you were to ask whether or not I have any sort of connection to him, I'd say that I don't. Perhaps they were trying to distract her, but her tone was of irritation. Seeming flustered by this, the men started talking in a hurry. Wait, if you don't want this guy, we have nothing to do with each other. About whatever was stolen from you, it was probably that girl from earlier. Right, that girl from earlier. She ran up the wall onto the roof. Yeah, over there. She probably 3 feet away by now. As they gave the rapid fire expression, her eyes met Subaru's. Her eyes seemed to ask if they were telling the truth, and Subaru nodded instinctively, unable to lie. Having seen this, the girl reluctantly nodded in understanding. Uh, it looks like you weren't lying. She went that way, huh? I'll have to hurry. She turned her back on them, prepared to leave. The men were blatantly relieved, and Subaru cursed his own foolishness for getting wrapped up in the atmosphere and squandering his only chance. However, be that as may, I cannot overlook what's going on here. She turned around with a palm facing them, and aimed a rock in her palm at the still men as she fired. Its speed would fit in the Major League, and its course was that of a beanball. It, the sound of a regulation was of balls striking flesh out thrice, and the men were blown away as they screamed in pain. Over here, Major League slugs to high level baseball, and a beanball is that intended to hit. Oh wow, baseball. I haven't played baseball. I don't know what he's talking about, but it does seem that he's referencing baseball as well. Next, having scored direct hits on the men, there was a high-pitched spin as lumps of ice fell by Subaru. Lumps of ice the size of a fist. Their existence defied any sense of season and even physics itself, and they disappeared as if consumed by the atmosphere once they had served their purpose. Oh, it's magic. The word most suited to explain this phenomenon immediately spilled out of his mouth. He didn't hear her chant or anything, but that ice just now was definitely formed and fired from her palm. Having seen this actually occurred before him, he realized something. This isn't nearly as fantastic as I thought. It feels disappointingly real. Uh, he had imagined light scattering around or energy flowing wildly, but in reality it was just some lumps of ice coming rapidly into existence and disappearing just as quickly. There wasn't even the slightest hint of atmosphere to it. You're really gone and done it now, so, Setting aside Subaru's impressions, the man who had been hit by that disappointing real attack had sustained serious damage. The two of them could barely keep their footing steady as they stood back up, and the third guy may have been hit in a bad spot because he was out cold. Despite their bleeding, the two who were still standing appeared ready to fight. Even the guy beside the guy with the knife was holding an object resembling a rusty nata, which as he prepared to fight. Nata is a type of short sword. I don't give a damn whether you're a mage or whatever. The two of us together are going to kill you. You think you can win against both of us? The man with the knife raised his voice in anger, and as he pressed down on his broken nose with the other hand, but the girl showed no signs of faltering. I suppose 2-on-1 might be unfair. The 2-on-2 should be okay, right? Yet another voice filled the alley, androgynous and high-pitched as if speaking for the girl. Subaru started looking around in surprise, and the men shared his reaction. They couldn't find anyone who could have spoken this word, not at the entrance and not, of course, within the alley. The three of them were confused and bewildered, as if to show off, the girl held her hand out. Her palm faced upwards, and it floated above her white fingertips. It's kind of embarrassed to be looked at like that, it said as it bashfully groomed his face. It, being a cat small enough to fit in a palm and standing upright. The coat was grey and its ears were floppy, and to Subaru it looks much like an American shorthair. Setting aside the pink nose and the length of its tail. The sight of this bizarre cat-like being caused a man with this knife to tremble as he swing. A spirit user? Correct. If you withdraw right now, I won't pursue you. Think fast. I don't have time for this. The man clicked their voice, tongues at her voice, and started to carry their fallen friend out of the alley. As they passed by Subaru and approached the exit, they glanced back at the girl and just you wait, you damn rat. You best be careful the next time you decide to wander around here. If you lay a finger on her, you'll be tormented until the end of time. You'll be in the afterlife well before that, though. Uh, they desperately tried to make threats, but the reply was dismissive in tone and its contents were rather severe. The cat in her palm waved at the frivolously, but their faces turned even paler as if silently fled out of the alley. Now they were gone, only Subaru remained before him. Don't move. Forgetting the pain coursing through him, Subaru tried to get up to thank her, but she stopped him in his track, her eyes cold voids devoid of any sentiments. Her eyes were filled with caution. Even having understood Subaru wasn't help them, she clearly didn't think of him as a good person. Despite this, he was enthralled by the beauty of her amethyst eyes. He wasn't used to dealing with such beautiful women, so that alone caused him to turn red and avert his eyes. Seeing this, the girl smiled boldly as she maintained her cautious gaze. Your guilty conscience made you avert your eyes. Looks like my judgment was spot on. I wonder. I don't smell any malice whatsoever. That was probably just an instinctive male reaction. You be quiet, Buck. You probably know who stole my insignia, right? The girl silenced at that as she tossed a question to Subaru's face. She seemed rather proud of herself, but sorry to disappoint, but I have no clue. No way! Her prideful friend grumbled, allowing her usual expression to come through for a moment. Her imposing attitude had also vanished as she turned the cat in her palm in a panic. What now? Did we really just waste our time? You're wasting your time as you speak. We really should hurry. The culprit definitely had the divine protection of the wind, considering how fast they ran. Why are you treating it like someone else's problem? You're the one who told me to stay out of it, though. Besides, what are you going to do about this guy? Malu smiled gravely when he once again became the topic of the conversation. The girl seemed as though she had just now realized that he was still here. Subaru put on a brave face for her and stood up. You're done enough. Thank you. You're in a hurry, right? You better get going. I'll help you out if you so desire. How about it? He had planned to say this while his fingers combed through her hair and his teeth sparkled, however. Huh? You'd better not try to stay. Too late. His head felt heavy and his body was wobbly. He tried to support himself against the wall, but his hand only grasped air. In the end, he had a reunion with the ground he was recently laying on. He fell completely undefended right onto his nose, the sharp pain making his consciousness drift. Well, what now? Well, it's not like you know him. He won't die, so let's leave him be. As the consciousness faded away, he could only make a bit of the conversation. This was a isekai, all right, huh? Even when it came to even when it came to kindness, he was going to be abandoned in some alley. A negative viewpoint. Well, he was about to die, so merely being alive was a blessing in itself. A positive viewpoint. These half-hearted thoughts rose through his mind as his consciously ignored. Really, really. On the verge of losing consciousness, he caught sight of the girl around, her face red. I definitely won't stick around to help him. She is so cute when she is angry. A true isekai. Those were his last thoughts as he blacked out. Well, EMT. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry, Rita Karshisan, I have done a great injustice to her voice. Goodbye.